Hey, this is Jim Lee, and you're about to enter into my world of Batman Hush.
Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I'm joined by Joe Corallo. How you doing?
I'm all right, Perch. How are you?
It's, crazy times, but...
Oh, what happened?
Oh, nothing much, just, we're into a new year, and we're finally getting to this this book that we want to do a retrospective of that we've been chomping at the bit to do for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know why, really, after going through it again.
I don't even, you know what's funny? So obviously people clicked on the video. They know we're going into Hush. So this comic that is strange because it holds this place, I think, in a lot of people's heart of being the epic Batman book, like the last great. In fact, I've seen a lot of reviews of the last great Batman story, or the story of a generation. And I reading it again, I remember not loving it the first time I read it. Reading it over again, it was a super chore to get through.
Oh yeah, no, this is it was a horrible experience, and every issue felt so long. I forgot how much Jeph Loeb writes.
Mm-hmm.
Like so much dialogue. I feel like he was trying to go for a little more of that. This time than maybe Long Halloween, but maybe I have to, go back to Long Halloween and double check it. But
I'm a little scared too now. I have very fond memories of the Long Halloween. I'd like those memories to stay there. But after reading this now, I'm a little scared to go back because it is this dialogue. I mean, there's so much. I've complained before about kind of the Bendis tropes of writing a certain way and the same. But going through it, this is I will say far more of a chore to get through.
Yeah, no, this felt like more of a chore, even though a lot of the same stuff happens exactly from Long Halloween, like someone coming to the Wayne's door to be like, "You have to save someone, Thomas Wayne."
Yeah.
The same beat because, Jeph Loeb, for whatever reason with this Batman stuff, is kind of a hack. But
it is. So the one part that I think it does hold up, although, there's an interesting comment in the special edition, which for some reason I own, that talks about the art. So what did you think? So Jim Lee, obviously, legendary creator, still holds, I think, the record for at least modern comics of most comics sold.
Absolutely.
So yeah, the art is very solid on this still. It's very pretty.
The art's solid, which is in no short order from Scott Williams and Alex Sinclair.
Yes.
But and before we continue, I do want to say, when it comes to noted comic artist and mime, Jim Lee, I don't know how many people know he's a trained mime.
And what they do in mime is they have a thing called tick and tack. I think it's been a while, but it's the ability to create an illusion of weight or resistance when there's nothing there. And I actually think you can use a lot of those techniques, or at least the thinking behind it all, when you're drawing the comic books. Because to create a successful book, and we'll go over there and I'll show you some stuff.
I can't wait.
Okay, you gotta take things to the extreme. You gotta if a guy's big and frightening, he should be huge. If a car is skidding around a corner, the wheels should be coming up, and smoke should be flying, and papers should be flying. And the thing is, these are all little. You have to put clues and ciphers in to create the illusion of speed, of momentum, or whatever. And mime is sort of the same thing. You want if something is heavy, you want to see it on the face, and you want to see it in their arms and the way they hold their back and stuff. So if there's a wall in front of you, you have this moment of total relaxation, and then as you press up against the wall, you create tension in your arm. So it's been a while. So And so if you have like a rope or something, this is another example. So if you're picking up a rope, you would grab it like this, right? And then pull like that. And you can see where the shoulders go.
Yeah,
and
every
the
part
weight,
of your body is moving.
So if someone's pulling on this rope, you would feel it in the head. And all these things will move as the things, as changes happen. And the thing is, there's no one pulling on this rope or whatever. I have to create the illusion of someone pulling on that rope. And that's what we do with comics, is you have to create the illusion of characters jumping and hitting each other or lifting a car. They just can't lift it like this unless they're incredibly strong, and that's the impression you want to get. But they should feel it, and there should be sound effects, and their face should be grimacing and things like that.
Oh, man, that was great. I used to put the sound effects in on the strips when I did. That was the thing I enjoyed the most.
I just want to make this clear, because I know that no matter what we say or do, we're going to get comments from people being like, how could you say that about Jim Lee? Jim Lee is great. Why are you trying to undermine Jim Lee? What did Jim Lee ever do to you? I just want to make it very clear. I've met Jim Lee on multiple occasions. I have multiple things signed by Jim Lee. I have a lot of things that Jim Lee did in my collection. And no matter what we say about Hush, if Jim Lee listened to this, he would be drying his tears with $100 bills sitting on a golden chair.
Absolutely. No, and I'm with you. I've paid a lot of money for some original Jim Lee art. And I think the guy is clearly a legend, has done his mark on things. And you make a good point. I think Scott Williams, Alex Sinclair deserve a ton for making this art really pop. And they, to their credit, Jim Lee kind of goes out of his way to admit that, or not admit, but I mean, just give credit where credit is due. Yeah,
Jim Lee, when it comes to those two, I think has always been very open and upfront about, like, I got the band back together whenever he's doing work, and he's always been very collaborative like that. One of the problems when it comes to like Hush, which I believe they got Jeph Loeb back, in part because they lost Grant.
Right.
And they basically, they approached Jeph. I think he was still doing stuff at Marvel, because I think this is right around when, like, maybe Daredevil Blue, Spider-Man Yellow, that kind of stuff was coming out at Marvel.
It is. It's all in the same time frame. He was boiling up the ideas for Ultimates 3 and Ultimatum at the time, but that would
right. Yeah, which a highlight of his career.
Okay.
But so there's an interview where, like, Jeph Loeb it basically sounded like DC came to me and was just like, please, for the love of God, come back. We'll give you whatever money you want. Any artist, just come back, please.
Yeah.
And Jeph was like, all right, okay. And they were like, well, who do you want to work for? And apparently he just shot for the moon, because he was like, fuck it, Jim Lee.
Yeah.
And that was his first choice. So they were like, hey, sure. And they figured it out, and they got Jim Lee, who no one believed in, which is sad.
Yeah.
All of these interviews with like Jim Lee being like, no one believed I could hit a monthly schedule, and he did.
Yeah, I find that strange, and it is weird. You see some of these comments about, he won't, and a lot of kind of very strange quotes about, does his art still hold up? Has he passed his prime? It's just weird to hear that kind of stuff get thrown out. And this was like 2003, right?
It's reminiscent to me, even though I wasn't around at the time, of everyone talking about David Bowie after Heroes came out, and being like, oh, that's it, that's the last great Bowie hit, and we're never going to get another great Bowie song, or like that kind of stuff.
It's weird, because I still feel like if today, and there's kind of more to be said about this a little bit later, but today if you said, hey, Jim Lee's going to come back and draw 12 issues of Batman, and just like, Hush 2, God help us. One, I think it would sell very, very well. And two, I don't think we'd be looking at it going, oh man, Jim Lee's a grandpa now, he can't draw anything. I think it'd be just fine. So it's just weird that almost 20 years ago, people were making these comments. It's very strange to me.
Sure. And another positive, before we get into the endless list of negatives, is if a book like this was coming out today of this quality, like when you look, because Jim does a lot with backgrounds, everything's really detailed. A book this detailed coming out today would never hit a monthly schedule. Never.
Yeah.
It would take about 2.5 years to come out. It would just be riddled with delays and being pushed back, and it would mess up the continuity of the other books in the line. Like, it would be a train wreck.
Yeah. Yeah, it would. And it's something I like about this book, which may just be my own thing, but this ran in Batman, the main title, starting with 608.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just was part of the main book. There wasn't a special edition Hush limited series. It wasn't it was an event in the sense that they were just doing it in the book, but they were trying to prop up. And there's some comments about how they were trying to boost sales and push and grow the ongoing title because that was a smart thing to do.
Wait a minute, Perch, are you telling me they didn't have to go back to a #1 issue to boost the sales?
It's amazing, right? It's like,
wow.
It's crazy. And I'll throw the sales like I did with the Grant run. I'll do the sales analysis on this at the same time, but it's like issue 608. The goal was, I mean, imagine that thinking today of like, hey, we're just going to put Jim Lee on this. And Jeph Loeb was a big name at that time too. But we're going to put these big people do this big thing, 12 issues, starting with issue 608 and make a big deal out of it. We're not going to worry that customers are too stupid to figure out, how to start with this by having to relaunch it or do a special event or any of that kind of crap. They just ran it in the regular comic. And I think that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's plenty of proof, by the way, as you look into the numbers, that this run on this book, even after they were gone from it, as we get into like the 620s and so on for the book, the sales got a shot in the arm for this. A lot of people just stuck around. It was a success in the strategy they used.
Yeah, no, it was a big success. It wasn't riddled with variant covers,
right?
It boggles the mind. It's the kind of thing that it's like, how did this happen? And the sales eventually went up. I feel like I think I don't have the data in front of me, but I believe close to the end it was selling higher than 608.
It was one of those cases, which is extremely rare. Happened with Civil War, happened with White Knight. It happens occasionally, but generally it's always a decreasing slope. With this one, it gained readers, and then the trades have been strong. It's been something they put out. So it's all, I mean, this just shows you can do it this way, and it's successful. This isn't some bygone time that doesn't work anymore. This would work right now if they did it this way.
So what you're trying to tell me is, let me just get this straight. If you have a book coming out with one of the biggest artists and it's hitting the shelves every month consistently, that retailers and fans will trust the book enough to order more?
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
This is madness.
It's mind blowing. Yeah, that it could be this way. And what's also crazy is that this book, this run, was started well in advance because they knew that it was important to hit a monthly schedule. They gave themselves some extra time to do it, and they stuck to their deadlines. It's crazy.
That really is weird. I don't know how that just doesn't
makes no sense, right?
It doesn't make any sense. Why didn't they switch artists multiple times and have 30 or so variants on a #1 issue? It
beats me. I mean, that's the way it's done. Everybody knows that. But this title, it grew sales over time, and it was almost always the #1 book throughout the entire run, and selling always north of 100,000 copies. Very, very successful. Same artist, same art, and it also. It is a superstar artist, as we're going to get into the story, which we're about to destroy. But if you put a quality artist on this, you can sell hundreds of thousands of books. Very, very simple.
Yeah, no, it's crazy, and I will say too. I don't know if we'll ever go into this, but for whatever reason, because this is also Jeph Loeb's doing Superman Batman around this time too, I believe.
Yeah, it is. There is some cross. I think toward the second half of the run. I think that's where Loeb.
Yeah, because the Luther for President stuff's still going on, or not for president. He is president.
Yeah, and those comics were also selling over 100,000 copies at the time. So it's
Jeph Loeb was writing multiple books selling over 100,000 copies a month.
Yeah.
You know, as much as I was, poking fun and saying it's a hack for rehashing these kind of things, it worked. Again, Jeph Loeb, very much the kind of guy wiping his tears away with $100 bills on a golden chair.
Yeah. He's
like, oh no, these two guys don't like the millions of dollars I made in comics and TV.
They're doing fine is the key. Yeah. and good for them. I'm glad they made the money they made. I mean,
for sure.
They both have earned it. Even though this is a terrible story, they earned that money. So
yeah, and I don't know if this is a controversial opinion or not, but I think that first arc of Superman Batman where they're fighting Luther as president was like just more fun than Hush.
It was. I think that's absolutely true. I think Hush and kind of getting into the story, my takeaway here is that there's a little bit of confusion of the story that they're trying to tell. I really like, and I think it's a good idea for ongoing books, and I think they should do it more often, this idea that you set apart a year and you give basically a tour of the Rogues Gallery, and you kind of remind this is a more, I think, natural, organic jumping on point than doing a #1 and trying to do a bold new status quo. Instead, this is kind of leaning into the old status quo. And I think that's a smart plan. I think it's just executed terribly here, but I think that general idea is a good one.
Yeah, the idea in general is good. Jim and the team make some interesting choices, like going with the like that, like blue cowl Batman.
Yeah,
which bold choice. But and I know Jim was the one who was really pushing for like a brighter Batman in Gotham, which I hate.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's not Alex Sinclair's fault at all. This is what they wanted to go for. Batman looks like an idiot when he's out in broad daylight and in bright colors and things like that. And this comic highlights that.
No, absolutely it does. And Jim Lee does comment at different parts, and you see it as you go through the issue, that his art changes through the course of it, and characters start looking very different as you go from issue to issue. And Batman, I think, gets a lot more gritty looking toward the end, is very kind of big, bulky, and day glow at the beginning. I mean, there's some definite choices going on here with the characters that are a little odd.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of odd choices. One of the oddest choices, and no one talks about this when they talk about Hush, and they're like, oh, Hush brings in, all the Batman villains you want to see in Hush, like when hacks talk about Hush on places like, I don't know. I don't want to name names, but, like Sci-Fi Wire or something like that.
We know who they all are, yeah.
One of the all-time best Batman stories, and definitely the best story of the past 20 years. Court of Owls, you come in a close second. Comic experts, you're thinking, thanks, dude, for saying something ridiculously obvious.
But yeah. It's like all of Batman's favorite all the villains you love, and it's like there's 3 issues of Killer Croc in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of Killer Croc. There's way too much Killer Croc.
Not only is there way too much Killer Croc, the Batman arc immediately after this, Broken City, is also a Killer Croc arc.
Yeah, this was during a time period where the Killer Croc was present in the Batman books far more than the Joker. Just to put it in perspective. Yeah,
there is like 3-4 times as much Killer Croc in this than Joker.
Yeah, it's very peculiar, and I can't explain exactly. I mean, they wanted a kind of a big, kind of monstrous looking thug, but the Killer Croc just keeps coming back. Like we get him, and then he goes away like the other villains, and then we get him returning over and over, and it's like. It's unclear, and he's looking for his money. He's always where's my money is like half of his dialogue.
Yeah, his money for his surgery to look less disgusting. but yeah, the animated movie version makes the smart choice of swapping out Killer Croc for Bane.
Yeah, Yeah.
Which is great in comparison. Because also, again, maybe this is a controversial choice for me to say, but I hate how Jim Lee draws Killer Croc.
No, I agree. I think you're supposed to, it's off-putting at the beginning and you don't understand why he's got this elongated head and it's just weird. And then later you're hearing, oh, he's devolving somehow and that's why he looks so strange. But that seems like a strange choice of like, we're going to draw him really weird. And then midway through the series, we're going to talk about how he's mutating. And that's the problem. But I can't stand this long-headed Killer Croc. It looks terrible.
Yeah. It looks terrible. We didn't need, secondary mutations in this.
Yeah, no.
We had enough secondary mutations on, the other side of the big two. We didn't need this, but just very weird things. Because even in like the first issue, it's like, how do you break Batman's, grappling, he's like grappling and just soaring around the city and someone breaks it right by like Crime Alley. It's just a weird choice.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and this is kind of the setup for the first several issues. It's how we get Tommy into his life and everything else. This idea that he's leaping around chasing Catwoman as heroes do. And his little line gets snapped. And he falls to his death, basically, or near death.
Yeah. And
it's odd because it doesn't feel like a situation Batman would be in. You have to imagine that we see a garage full of cars. We see all kinds of things going on. Seems strange that he'd be picking like cheap nylon rope for his grappling hook. But anyway, this is the moment. His fall is why we get pretty much the first third of the story.
Yeah, because he fractures his skull, which has no real, like, the whole point is, spoiler alert, is so he goes into surgery and gets something implanted in his head. But there's like no consequence beyond that. And it seems like there are way easier ways to get something in his system to like track him or manipulate him than arranging and hoping he fractures his skull and might go to the right doctor to get an implant.
Spoiler, Tommy Elliott, the mysterious childhood friend we've never heard of before that we spend a lot of time with flashbacks. Flashbacks, by the way, that shows Tommy to be kind of a dick as a kid.
Yeah, and they try later on, it's like maybe it's issue like 8, where they're like at the funeral for Tommy, 8 in like the collection. It's like issue like 616 or whatever it is. But there, you have Dick and Tim being like, I never heard of this Tommy before, me either, but Bruce doesn't talk much. And it's like, you don't get to like throw a toss away line like that and be like, oh, I'm a good writer now. It's, you don't get to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. This whole plot of Tommy, it is. I mean, I'd like to know who was genuinely surprised by the reveal that Tommy is Hush and is this villain, because it was like you knew from the first appearance. It's like, hey, here's a mysterious person we've never heard of before, who's got some relation to Batman. And by the way, these flashbacks show him to be kind of an intense dick. And there's a mysterious shadowy person around haunting Batman. I wonder if these could be the same person.
Yeah. Oh God, it's a mystery. it's the dumbest thing. But then it seems like they wrote it, and then even though it was really obvious, they then got self-conscious that it was too obvious, and then change it 7 or 8 times as you're reading this.
Yeah, exactly. They wanted to insert. I think they wanted to know kind of where this thing was going, but then to make it less obvious, they decided to cram in Harvey Dent, who shops at the same store, I guess, as Tommy. I mean, he's got the same coat and turtleneck and everything else. And then you've got the Riddler involved as well, which we'll get to. I mean, these elements don't particularly make any sense, don't add anything to the story, and it doesn't help make it more of a mystery. It just makes it more convoluted and stupid.
Yeah, and oh my God, it's just I'm just skimming through it again. I hate it, but you're doing all this. It's basically like the way it's written is it's like Hush is like the Rian Johnson Last Jedi of Batman comics. It's constantly trying to subvert your expectations until you don't care.
That's right. And I think you get to that don't care point somewhere around issue 3 or 4.
I think our fan base both has grown, but they've also become very sophisticated. And so that when you are telling a story, that fan base will be very vocal about it. I still think at the end of the day that, you know, I go to some of the largest sites in order to see what people are talking about. And even in the most aggressive kind of way, you're not talking about the same numbers of people that you're getting as to who's reading the book. So what I like to do is I like to think of the internet as the best way in order to promote what you're doing and in order to get your voice out there. But at the same token, you need to be able to get those people to actually purchase the book. And then after that, it just depends on how you're doing. And my vision as to what I try to do is I try to get my books into the most hands as I can. I'm a storyteller at the end of the day.
There are a lot of layout choices from Jim, and I don't know if they are his fault or if it was just following what Jeph wanted to do. But just awful layout choices. Like there's a lot of like double page spreads with like a tall panel on either side and then like 2 panels like in the middle. And then when it's like collected, you get that like gutter loss.
Yeah, it's a very strange choice because this doesn't, you know, if you read lots of other Jim Lee, his X-Men work, his Wildcats work, other things he's done. The layouts, it struck me too. The layouts for this book are very different from typical Jim Lee. He doesn't normally make these kinds of strange choices with his pages.
Yeah, there's a layout in it's chapter 4 of this where they're by the Daily Planet building, and it's 2. Like this is just a one page. It's not a double page spread, but on either side is a tall panel of the Daily Planet, but from different angles. Yeah. And then in the middle, you get, oh my God, it's like you get 3 stacked panels of people talking, and it's just like, it's a mess. Yeah. It's just a mess, and it's hard to follow.
It is. I'm looking at that page right now too, and it is. And we'll have that up on the screen. But it's definitely such a confusing choice for how to put up a comic, and then it's cluttered with a ton of dialogue that is meaningless dialogue. Like there's no point to this whole scene.
Yeah, they really put Richard Starking's working overtime on this lettering this book, because oh my God. Oh, and then the next page is the one with the awful like throwback to Superman the movie line with the rapist line from it's just
it's unclear. I mean, they're homaging the Superman movie, but it could also be the Celebrity Jeopardy on SNL.
It's nothing that needs to be homaged.
No, it's not, and this also gets to the point where you start to wonder with some of the art, like Jim Lee's breakdowns start to get pretty sloppy. Like the image of Lois looks fairly clunky compared to other stuff he does. It's there you start to wonder if this was an issue he was speeding through or what's going on. But I noticed this issue in general, and a couple of them, the art degrades to some extent.
Yeah, by the end of this, Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent, and Thomas Elliott's faces are all exactly the same.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very odd how these issues are strange. The other thing in general about the art is, and I'm sure some of the listeners won't mind this, but who was super horny putting this thing together? Because there's just a lot of, there's like full panels where you're just, Catwoman's butt is basically the panel, and then there's some words around it, and even the dialogue back and forth. There's like you get the sense that there was just so people were just super horny writing and or drawing this thing.
Yeah, there's the really bad bit in like that double page spread where Harley somehow has like her tits visible and her ass in the same panel, like the same double page spread.
Yeah, she's just fully twisting around, and it's
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of this kind of stuff that is I mean, it's fine. It's again, Jim Lee's putting nice pieces of art together. Who doesn't like a nice butt? But still, it kind of there's issues, particularly Poison Ivy appears, where it's like it seems like the plot sort of you lose focus completely on what's going on, and it's just an excuse to have multiple panels.
Yeah, but the chiropractors in Gotham are making bank. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Well, so are the plastic surgeons, but
no, for sure. And then, like, oh my god, like, there's also a panel later on when Batwoman, when Catwoman is in the Batcave, and for no reason she's like sprawled out on like a computer console with like her ass in the air.
Yeah, she'd be wrecking that computer. I mean, that's
and it's like
sit on like that.
Why would any person do that? Like,
I mean, it's cheesecake, it's poses, it's inherently it's fine for what it is, but it does put the characters in very weird positions at times that just don't seem to fit anything else that's going on in the comic. And there's definitely some odd stuff in there.
Yeah, and oddly enough, like what was it? There's that one page where he does this thing that is a lot less effective than when John Byrne does it. John Byrne's one of like his big inspirations, like John Byrne on X-Men was one of the reasons why Jim Lee wanted to get into art. And John Byrne would do this thing to show movement where you'd have like multiple versions of a character in a panel to make it look like they're moving really fast.
Yeah.
And there's one big like half-page splash in I think it's the 6th chapter where they're fighting Harley Quinn, where it's like, how many shots of Harley's ass can we get in this one panel?
That's right. Yeah, she's bouncing around the room, and it's showing kinetic movement. It is funny because it makes you it reminds you of a lot of Jim Lee work, because it is definitely that same style. But maybe the issue, I guess, that I'm having here, because I have no problem with cheesecake art. It's fine, especially, I'm a big fan of a lot of what Byrne did with She-Hulk and everything else. But
sure.
Part of I think the problem here is when you layer in really clunky dialogue with this stuff, it kind of cheapens it makes it dumber when the dialogue is so stupid. It's like, it's the scenes of where you just kind of have, Batman's butt in the scene, and he's saying, I should have shaved. It's like the dialogue makes it cornier.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of scenes where there's like just too much dialogue. Like it feels like there's just dialogue just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, we get very little Nightwing butt in this story.
That's true. Yeah, they do. They don't go to the classics. They definitely
I don't know. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, it's odd. We get a Lex Luthor butt at one point, but not Nightwing. It's a little strange.
Yeah, and as you're noticing, if you've also read this book, dear listeners, a lot of the way this is written is specifically to allow Jim Lee to draw like every classic moment in Batman.
Right.
You're inundated with flashbacks of like, oh, Batman's, holding Jason Todd, Batman's parents, the Killing Joke. Every one of those moments, there's like a flashback just so Jim Lee could draw it.
Yeah. I do give him credit where he does manage to do the origin of Batman, which has been told, I think, roughly 20 million times in comics. He does manage to do that in a page and a half, and I appreciate that brevity.
Yeah. And there's also one the page that's like so forced it maybe just want to you just want to throw this book across the room.
Yeah,
is for no reason. They're like, oh, we're going to take the car, and it's like, which car? And then it's like just every Batmobile ever, and you're just like, fuck this.
Yeah, it's and I get it. I think it's the dialogue is what's killing it. Is that there's nostalgia you can jump into and you can leverage, and there's things that could have been a cool moment, but this clunky, terrible writing it takes what is supposed to be just kind of fan service nostalgia and makes it cheesy, stupid.
Yes.
So in terms of the characters, I guess the other thing about this book that struck me is I remember thinking this at the time, but kind of going back and reading it, the backdrop to this whole story is Batman and Catwoman kind of starting a relationship. Would you say that seems to be the thread here?
Yeah, the catalyst is Catwoman is in, and Batman's sort of like, oh, let's just fuck it, let's finally do this. Yeah. But while it's under the guise, because what was it? She was like tracking Killer Croc and stealing the money from Killer Croc, and that's how they get involved. And
because Poison Ivy was manipulating her.
Yeah, but like there's again, like this is where it gets like very Last Jedi, where it's just this constant like, who's the real bad guy? What are we really doing? And then it just becomes this whole muddled, layered mess of okay, so Killer Croc's being manipulated, and then Poison Ivy's manipulating someone while also being manipulated, and then there's this Hush guy walking around that's clearly Two-Face, but it's not Two-Face. It's Harvey, because Two-Face is gone now because he got surgery, but there's another guy who's walking around that's also dressed like Harvey, and that's Hush, and that's supposed to be, it turns out, Thomas Elliott, but it's not Thomas Elliott, it's Clayface, after Clayface pretended to be Jason Todd. And this was all part of Riddler's scheme to pull one over, like Batman and also Ra's al Ghul, who somehow Ra's al Ghul wasn't able to figure out that the Riddler used one of his Lazarus pits.
Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul, who figured out that Bruce Wayne is Batman very early on, couldn't figure out that one of the dumbest villains in Batman's Rogues Gallery was the one who like trashed one of his Lazarus pits.
No, and Harold is involved as well. We've got
fan favorite Harold. Every new reader knows Harold. Everyone is just jumping into Batman. Where's a good place to start? Hush. Why is Harold who?
And then we also get dangled that Jason's body is missing.
Yes.
And that gets picked up later, but I don't think it gets picked up from this. I have a hard time believing that this was setting up Jason Todd's return by any stretch of imagination. I think that was a happy accident. And then Tommy Elliott is still out there running around. Of course, he comes back into the picture later.
He comes back later, but as far as we know, he actually, in the continuity of Hush, he's dead. And then they come back later and are like, he's not.
Well, so the entire, this is where I get confused, what they were trying to go for exactly, because we get the reveal that Batman's swinging around trying to solve this crime, get the money from Killer Croc before she can, Catwoman steals it, who's controlled by Poison Ivy, who's being manipulated by the Riddler. But during this time, the scheme here is that we're going to catch Batman while he's swinging around, snap his rope, get his head injury. He'll go back to the Batcave, but we've been feeding him subliminal messages of Tommy Elliott's face all this time, who also did plastic surgery on Harvey Dent, and that's going to cause Batman to use Morse code to signal he wants Tommy Elliott to do the surgery, which will allow the implant to go. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and then all this is like, so then they tried to get Two-Face involved, but before, for whatever reason, they decided that they were going to give Harvey the surgery to correct his face, which has already been done so many fucking times at this point. It's such a tired trope. I mean, Marv Wolfman did it. Frank Miller did it. Like, stop.
Yeah.
So they do this, and then for whatever reason, the Riddler's like, oh, we'll give you the surgery before you do the thing we need you to do.
Well, exactly. So, and what was the plan exactly with Tommy Elliott? Because there's this scene where Batman's there with Superman, and he's kind of laying all this stuff out, and he does make the genius line of, how could I not have known what was going around me? I mean, fuck, none of us know now what was going on around me. Don't feel bad, Batman. But we hear that Superman he scanned the harbor and he can't find a body, which is okay. He's talking about Harold there, but Harold was the one who was embedded to put the message of Tommy Elliott, and then Tommy Elliott put the trips, and Tommy Elliott is in theory dead, but maybe he's not dead, and this leads to Superman burning the chip out of Batman's head, which is absolutely the best way to do it. I can't tell what the plan was. Like, I would love to sit down with, well, I wouldn't love this actually, but I'd love to hear, Jeph Loeb kind of explain, like, what was your plan for the villain here?
Yeah, because it clearly changed multiple times, because the way they set up Tommy Elliott early on with the whole his parents died in a car accident, right. It seemed like, or his father did, his mother survived. It seemed all rushed at the end because the art doesn't seem to match what's being said in like the last chapter in issue like 619.
No, not at all.
It seemed like they did a rewrite where he's just, it was like, I actually wanted my parents to die and you saved them and that ruined my life. And it's just like, what? You came to Wayne Manor.
Yeah.
Why did you do that? Why did you try, like, okay. Why would you think the best way to kill your parents is to cut their brakes when you have a chauffeur?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know if they'd actually, but would they all die? You didn't have anything against the chauffeur. And then, Thomas Wayne is an amazing surgeon. So maybe going to the Waynes wasn't the best idea. Like, there are so, like, it seems like cutting the brakes and hoping for the best isn't the best plan to assure someone gets killed.
Yeah, I don't, again, that's why I can't tell what exactly was the plan. I mean, clearly the goal was Tommy Elliott is bad. As a kid, rotten, doing these bad things. We get to reveal the parents, but he's bad and stupid. So then he carries a grudge that, I can't tell what is the motivation for any of this, but it's like I said, I think there was a plan where this changed maybe they were heading in one direction and it just became different by the time it was all said and done.
It had to, because also the mom survived, so she would have known the brakes were cut. Why wouldn't she have had the police investigate it? They're rich.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, rich people don't go like, oh, someone tried to murder me. Puh, it's fine. You got me this time killing my husband. That's a freebie. It's
just weird. Like you said, it's unclear, again, what the plan. Maybe the dialogue changed in all this. It's, Hush and Batman are having a big fight on the bridge. They shoot Hush, or Two-Face. Harvey Dent shoots Hush. He falls off into the river. Okay. And then Batman tries to find him, can't. They talk about, Batman says Tommy Elliott is dead, but then they make the suggestion that if you dig up the grave, you'll find clay residue there, inferring that was Clayface. But then who is where, and does anybody care at this point?
Yeah, and also it makes no sense, because then Tommy was like, I wanted to kill my parents. I only killed one of them, and then I just waited out the other one. I didn't try to kill him again.
Yeah. Well, you only get one shot at those kinds of things. So you just...
Yeah, I'm just going to wait for her to die of cancer, whatever, because, I gave it the old college try. It didn't work out, so, I get to live.
Yeah, exactly. And so I guess you're left with a mystery, assuming that the Hush that fell off into the river was Thomas Elliott or not, and then it's revealed that Harvey Dent was the mystery person who shot the earlier Thomas Elliott in the alley, but that was Clayface and not Thomas Elliott. It just, again, it's hard to tell what reveal is where, and they did try after the fact to kind of come in and clean some of this stuff up, but it's less that this thing has plot holes and more that it just, nobody knows what the hell is going on.
Yeah, none of this makes sense. It's a lot of like, oh well, you know, let's make sure we got Ra's al Ghul in. Let's make sure we get Talia in. Let's make sure you know, we get a lot of these different characters involved. Clearly, Jim just wanted to draw Commissioner, not Commissioner anymore, Gordon.
Yeah,
because he just shows up a bunch of times, even though he's not a cop anymore.
Well, it shows up with a gun, and he's I don't know what he's doing in this. I guess he's just hanging out. I mean, it is. I'm a fan, and I do think that titles have been going on for a long time. Like, I would love to see somebody take Captain America, especially with where it's at right now, and just do a year-long 12-issue story where you just run through all of Captain America's rogues gallery, and it's a big mystery, and we get to see a celebration of all things Cap. I think that'd be cool.
Sure.
But if you're going to do that, just lean into maybe the nostalgia and the shallowness of it. Don't try and Ryan Johnson in your script. That does not, I mean, if anything, it just takes away. Like, I found myself super irritated by the story that was being told, to the point that it's taking away from the actual enjoyment of seeing all these characters.
Yeah. And there's a little they're overdoing it a little bit with the trying to like be like, this might be someone's first comic, because this comic, you could have a whole issue if you took all the little bits of like, oh, Barbara, this is the origin of Barbara. Oh, Tim Drake, this is how Tim Drake became Robin.
Yeah.
You know, oh, Jason, this is how Jason died. You know, there's so much of that. There
is. It just goes on. And I mean, you even start to wander into some things about Superman and Maggie Sawyer and Lois, and like, I mean, you just there's a lot of it gets tiring after a while, and I don't know. As I'm flipping through this too, there's a million things to annoy me in here.
Yeah, and so Riddler is the mastermind, but for no real reason.
Yeah, he knows now Batman's secret identity, but what's the point of that? Like, and I forgive me, I don't recall, like, how was that followed up on? Did he then later forget it, or does he just still know it? And nobody, I mean, what have they done there? I
mean, Infinite Crisis happens not super long after this, so who cares?
Fair enough. Yeah, it's,
you know,
they treat it as a big reveal, like the Riddler knows who you are, and even Batman's like, all right, I don't have anything to fear from you. I'm like, yeah, you do. He knows your identity, and he just screwed around with you, nearly killed you. You required your childhood friend to come in and implant something in your head to get around, but I have nothing to fear for you. You're fine.
I mean, the nice thing about you know, Arkham is that they let him still wear his like supervillain outfit in the padded cell.
Yeah, along with the hat and everything. Like that's nice of Arkham to do that. I mean, I guess you get the threat that Batman basically threatens him to say, if you tell my secret, then I will. I mean, he doesn't. He makes a strange choice. Like, keep in mind, Ra's al Ghul is looking for who used his pit. So I guess he'll tell Raj that the Riddler was one who used it. But I'm pretty sure Raj will figure that out on his own.
Yeah, the last couple of issues of this in particular feel like they were written by an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Because you have the whole Tommy Elliott thing where he's like, I wanted to kill my parents because you got money, and I want money for dead parents. And then the Riddler just being like, I found out who you are, so I just talked to all the people that don't like you, and we wanted to do bad things to you, and they did it for money.
Yeah.
Like, are you, what a fucking joke. Just like, can you at least try for a second? Like, it's like,
yeah. And what is with this part in the middle where, for an issue, Batman basically freaks out and is going to kill the Joker once and for all, like tossing aside decades of kind of Batman's code and everything else. But Batman goes on a weird anger rampage for an issue of like, I'm going to kill him this time. I'm tired of it. This is going to happen. And because he shot Tommy, who is this guy that just randomly showed up in his life, it's going to cause him to toss aside his entire code. And he to the point that he punches the girl he's sleeping with, and Jim has to talk him down. It's like that this whole scene is stupid.
It's terrible. There's a lot of character breaking moments in this. The Harvey Dent stuff makes absolutely no sense. And then, I mean, it also brings up some of the other problems with Batman in general. Like, what the fuck is Wayne Enterprises even? It's like, your dad was a surgeon. Surgeons don't tend to have these giant foundations with defense contracts.
No, exactly. I can't understand what this family business is that they're in. I mean, surgeons make some money, but not enough to have a mansion and a butler and all this others. Not like this. And
if they did, they wouldn't be practicing surgeons.
No, exactly. There's also a lot of repeat of panels, which is something interesting. Like, you do get a section of the book where you get the same panel repeated over and over, and then they draw something into the foreground. There's a lot of, that's what they use a lot when they're trying to have Hush kind of lean into the scene. They'll do a lot of duplication there. No, it's, and what, so this relationship, again, this is where there's an answer to this, but did they establish that Bruce Wayne was dating Selina Kyle prior to this? Independent of Batman dating Catwoman?
They must have, because she's at Tommy's funeral.
Yeah, she's at the funeral and she's at this opera, and they kind of established this, I've got this weird life where, Batman's dating Catwoman and Bruce is dating Selina, and I know she's Catwoman, but she doesn't know I'm Bruce. But she'd probably figure it out 'cause she's not stupid, but maybe she'll know. I can't get a handle on, at what point did they establish this?
It's handled much better with Steve Englehart's run with Silver St. Cloud, where she immediately figures it out, because how could you not? If you've been intimate or dated someone and then they showed up and they were covering half their face, you'd know who they are. Yeah,
as exactly. It just that part is very, very strange. So Batman does decide to come clean, and he tells Catwoman, and then they get into a very, we're also told that this entire identity is he's a playboy and everything else, but then there's this kind of weird line where we learn that Catwoman hasn't slept with Batman yet, and she's kind of made fun of for that, and that also seemed to come completely out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't get it, but there's a lot of I don't know. There's stuff like that. There's stuff with Huntress that makes no sense. Jim just wanted to draw Huntress because there's a lot of character bloat here.
Yeah,
Huntress serves nothing in this story. There's nothing Huntress is doing that Tim, Dick, or Oracle couldn't do.
No, absolutely. And same thing a little bit with Talia. Talia comes into the picture for no real apparent reason. I mean, it sets up Catwoman's fight against Shiva, but that's this awkward dialogue where I guess we brought in Talia to be jealous of Catwoman sleeping with Batman, and she's not, and it's, I don't know, it's just
which is again already been done. We've been there. That's happened pre-crisis. That's in God, what was it? I want to say Marv Wolfman and Jerry Conway and Doug Mensch all covered that.
Yes, we've seen it before a lot.
Yes.
I don't. So, and at the very end, basically Catwoman says hush kind of by accident, and that causes Batman to get suspicious of her, and they break up, maybe, kind of, but not really. I don't know.
It's done loose enough, I guess, so whoever took over the book next could do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Which, I guess is fine.
I thought it would just be another Batman story, and Jeph realized that we may not do a lot of Batman stories together, so he said, look, let's do a story that has all the greatest Batman villains. I'll figure something out that's a great murder mystery, because we want to lean into the fact that Batman's not just a great crime fighter, he's also an amazing detective, the world's greatest detective.
So this book, I mean, it is pretty. It has good colors. It's generally nice, but it sucked to read this.
Yeah, no, it's a garbage story, and it sucks, and it's a hard read. There's nothing interesting about it because it's not even trying. It doesn't seem like it knew what it was doing. It seemed like, oh, we'll figure it out the next issue what we're gonna do. Ooh, people are people are figuring out what we're doing. We better re-letter the ending. Like it has too much of that.
Let's defy some expectations. I think you hit the nail on it. This is the Ryan Johnson of Batman.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I found myself as I was looking through this, my mind would wander, and I just kind of click and kind of look at some of the art and the pages and just stop reading, and that was becoming more enjoyable. I had to force myself to go back and actually read the dialogue, and it just every time I did that, I just got angry at myself.
Absolutely. You know it's a good comic when, as you're reading it, you skim a little ahead to be like, how many more pages are in this like issue?
Yeah,
like that happened to me for too many of these issues.
Oh, for sure. I you know, some of the different colored kind of pastel for the flashbacks. You look at some of this stuff and like, wow, this would make a pretty good poster. There's some cool stuff, but nothing about this story is really redeemable for anything.
No, I mean, it's weird that one of the best pages is probably that splash page with the like original, like, you know, Alan Scott Green Lantern flying in the sky.
Oh yeah, no, that's one of the most beautiful things from all of this, and it doesn't even have Batman in it. Oh, it's an interesting experiment. I think, you know, you mentioned before. I think before you started recording it, it goes to show if you put a superstar artist on a book, it will sell well. It will be often remembered fondly, even if the writing is absolute trash.
Yeah, and it'll sell really well. It's like it just come out on time. If you know, retailers and fans alike can know that, hey, Jim Lee's on a book and it's coming out every month, people will forgive a lot.
Oh yeah,
you know, yeah.
I mean, there's no way you could go through this story, I think, and actually enjoy what's being said here.
No.
But I think you could appreciate the fact, like you said, it's coming out every month. It's pretty to look at. I mean, this is one of those cases where when they made the animated movie, I think they improved it dramatically.
Yeah, no, they did. I watched the animated movie the other week, knowing that we were going to tackle this, and the movie was actually better.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a lot better. I think it's not the best, but it's still. I had turned it on last night. I just watched a bit of it, and then I came back to the comic, and I'm like, oh god damn, like no.
Yes.
It's funny. I suspect that a lot of people have very fond memories of this book and everything that went on here and how cool it was. Their memories are really based on the art, and if you want to destroy your childhood, because who doesn't?
Absolutely.
You know, pick this thing up and actually try and read it and ignore the art to some extent. To deal with it as a story. But we've talked it to death. It is dumb and stupid.
It is dumb and stupid. Probably better than For Tomorrow, which was Jim Lee's next 12-issue arc to bring Superman back up.
Which, as I recall, didn't come out on time. I think there are issues with that one.
That one, there might have been issues, but Brian Azzarello was writing Superman and Batman at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, Broken City and For Tomorrow were happening concurrently. I don't know if he was actually writing them at the same time. He might have been writing ahead of schedule with one or the other, but they were releasing concurrently.
Yeah.
You know, and that's crazy. Think about that. In today's standards, like if you're like, oh, who's writing Batman? Who's writing Superman? The same guy.
Yeah.
You know, they were both the main title Superman Batman books. These were not spin-offs. He was doing both.
And sort of pulling it off in the process.
Yeah. It's crazy. But yeah, if you really gotta read a 12-issue Batman run, I would recommend City of Crime.
Yeah, absolutely.
City of Crime, David Latham. It is. Oh my God! I recently got the oversized hardcover, and I read through that, and I didn't want to put it down. It's incredible.
It holds up.
Yeah,
it holds up way better than Hush.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, do yourself a favor if you're a Batman fan and you just want a gritty, crime sort of story with some crazy shit going on, and like in actual twist might be the wrong word, but actually sets up something and pays it off in like a real way that an adult good writer does, read City of Crime.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was no surprise. If you read through this, there was zero surprise that Loeb would go on to do Ultimatum and Ultimates 3. I mean, it's the same fingerprints, but dumber. But yeah, I think this is probably, in my mind, one of the worst big comics over the last 30 years.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree with you. I couldn't recommend this to anyone because I hate it so much.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's a shame because the art is pretty top notch. I mean, it really is a very, very good, it's pretty good looking. And again, there's problems with it, but you know, sure. Grand scheme of things, no problem. But it is, you can't, I'm the same way. I've, people said, I want a really good Batman story. And immediately you start to think about, okay, well, you know, you have your Dark Knight Returns, you have your Dark Knight, you have the classics, The Killing Joke and everything else. It's like, well, Hush should be that book because it takes you through the Rogues Gallery. You get a bunch of characters and everything in 12 issues. But as a story and as something where you actually want somebody to enjoy the character out the other end of it, it's miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is it's a bad place to bring someone in. It's a great recommendation if you were in high school when this came out and reading it at the time.
Yeah, that's true.
If you were involved in the stupid guessing games people had in like high school and college and this was coming out and, oh, who is Hutch and all that, I can see where that would have been a fun place to jump on, but that's almost 20 years ago now, and no, don't.
Yeah, not anymore. No, the plot, no part of this holds up at all where the plot is concerned. So, well, all right. So that was our torture. What as we get ready to sign off here, what would you like to do next? What should we do next? What's something fun for us?
There's a few. We've got a list. We've talked about, and people have requested new Teen Titans. So that's definitely going to come up soon. I want to hit some more indie stuff like Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
I think it's important. People forget that was like a gigantic phenomenon.
Yeah,
and I believe all 6 volumes by the time the movie came out sold 1 million copies.
It did. People's view, and so I'm excited to get with Scott Pilgrim with you because I think a lot of people's views of that comic are not of that comic, but actually the clones and the people referencing that comic.
Yes.
And so there's a lot to learn there for sure. And Teen Titans is going to be a lot of fun to do. I know people would like us to go back and do more with Legion. So there's some good stuff coming up. We'll try and treat ourselves by doing some comics that we don't both fucking hate.
Yeah, absolutely. And Judge Dredd, The Cursed Earth.
Oh, that would be great.
I love that one. And that's the kind of one that it's like, if you want to get into Judge Dredd, that's where you go. But we'll, we'll talk about that and the Jerry Conway Spider-Man run we've talked about.
Yes.
There's a lot to go into there.
Chef's kiss, yeah.
Yes, it's very chef's kiss. But yeah, Legion, I think some of the Dan Abbott, Andy Lanning stuff and 5 years later and things like that would be good to go into with Legion. Some of the post-crisis stuff that Legion 5 years later, I'm going through it right now because I got the omnibus, and there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, Hickman definitely scratched off the serial numbers on Hoxpox from a Legion pitch because he seems to be taking a lot from Legion 5 years later.
Oh yeah, no, that'll be a good conversation to have with you another time. I think this theory that a lot of Hickman, the big rumor was he's being set up to do Legion, and more, I think it feels like the Hoxpox stuff was his Legion pitch, just changed around.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is something that's happened to the X-Men title, I think, multiple times at this point.
It is. Yeah. No, this is not the first time. So we can tease people getting used to that. But anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed this. I enjoyed talking it through with you. The most enjoyable part, actually, of going through this shitty issue was going over it with you, Joe.
Thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you're all still Jim Lee fans after this and practice your miming.
That's absolutely right.
Yes.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one.
What happened to that guy that bet Lee he couldn't do it?
It was Mike Carlin. Yeah, I don't even think he was the Batman editor at the time. It's just someone I knew from my days at Marvel. And so we actually bet $100. So he sent me a check for $100, and I just pinned it to the wall by my drawing board, never cashed it.